Yeah, man. I mean, I had to bring you back. This documentary got everyone talking, man. A lot of people want to know why you wasn't in it, man.
Well, first and foremost, I thought I was going to be in the documentary at first until I started talking to that director.
But if you look at it, it's all controlled. And then why is the CIA funding third world country record labels? Why is that happening?
We've reached the moment where this story stops being merely scandalous and becomes outright catastrophic for Sean Diddy Combs. While the public has been distracted by debates over his prison sentence, his failed attempt at a Trump pardon, and even the chilling reports of a knife attack inside his Brooklyn jail cell, a far more explosive development has been unfolding quietly in the background. It begins with his private jet, the Gulfstream G550 he sold in October 2025 under what insiders now describe as desperate circumstances. What seemed like a routine luxury sale is turning into something far darker, because according to sources close to the deal, the new owners may have unknowingly purchased a flying crime scene, and they're the ones who have now contacted law enforcement.
Testified that he showed her a video of a freak-off that she participated in and said, if you don't participate in another freak-off when we get to New York, I'm going to put this video out. I'm going to send it to your mother.
And that's coercion.
She testified to that.
If the jury
they believed her, that's coercion.
Let that sink in for a moment. The same man who once smugly posted Instagram clips of himself boarding that jet with the caption, "No place like home," is now watching from a prison cell as his former symbol of power and luxury transforms into yet another piece of evidence in his public unraveling. The tail number was changed and the registration quietly shifted to San Marino, as if a foreign flag could somehow wipe away what was left behind inside a $30 million aircraft. But secrets don't stay buried, especially when they're allegedly bolted to the wings of a private jet. According to sources, the new owners aren't dealing with forgotten sparkling drink bottles or a stray designer shoe. They're said to have discovered photos, recordings, and physical traces tied to the so-called freak-offs that became central to his trial, where prosecutors portrayed the jet as more than transportation, but a mobile extension of parties in which women were allegedly coerced, filmed, and discarded. And now, instead of a luxury purchase, the buyers are facing a nightmare they never signed up for.
On Diddy, because on Friday he finds out what his sentence is going to be, but today he found out what prosecutors would like that sentence to be, and it is vastly different from what his attorneys have suggested to the judge. Prosecutors want him to do 11 years, just over.
And the timing of it all practically screams desperation. October 2025, 6 months after his conviction, deep into a prison sentence with failed appeals piling up, and his pleading letter to Trump reportedly ignored altogether. This wasn't a clever financial move. It was a man dumping assets the way a sinking ship throws cargo overboard. This is the same jet that just a year earlier was flying him off to Antigua, while federal agents raided his Los Angeles and Miami mansions. The same jet he flaunted online like a defiant middle finger as the walls closed in. Then suddenly, gone, sold for what insiders say was well below market value. Because for Diddy in 2025, liquidity wasn't about profit. It was about survival. The matte black exterior, the pet-friendly beige interior, the entertainment system that likely witnessed things no one should ever have to see, none of it mattered anymore. And the buyers didn't just purchase a plane. They inherited a liability, one now forcing them to make phone calls no one ever wants to make to people who definitely don't want to hear from them. And that's where this gets even messier. Because this isn't just about a jet. It's about what it symbolized. A man who once turned private aviation into part of his personal brand, Combs Air, complete with staged stairway shots, placemats, and Instagram flexes, all of which now read less like luxury and more like evidence.
They once worked together a long time ago. They're not friends now. They don't like each other. And yeah, 50 has taken every shot, especially when Diddy has been down.
The way he'd stride up those steps like he owned the sky, because for a while he kind of did. And now that same jet is being treated like a biohazard, and the questions are piling up faster than his legal bills. What exactly did they find? Are we talking about footage from those infamous hotel nights where, according to trial testimony, women were pressured into performances no one consented to document? Are we talking about physical evidence tying back to the raids where prosecutors found freak-off supplies? And let's just say if you have to Google what that means, you're not ready for the answer. And perhaps most chilling of all, if this plane is this damning, what else is out there that hasn't been found yet? Because let's not forget this is a man who even after his conviction still had the audacity to write a handwritten letter to Donald Trump begging for a pardon. A letter Trump not only ignored but mocked, dangling it in front of reporters like a cat playing with its food.
I got along with him great, and seemed like a nice guy. I didn't know him well. But when I ran for office, he was very hostile.
He said some not so nice things about you, sir.
Yeah, and it's hard, like you, we're human beings.
Right.
And we don't like to have things cloud our judgment, right? But when you knew someone and you were fine, and then you run for office and he made some terrible stuff.
Oh, would you like to see that letter? He teased, before ultimately doing nothing at all. And why would he? When Diddy wasn't just convicted but fully exposed. The trial didn't merely put him behind bars. It ripped the curtain back on a decade of allegations so disturbing that even longtime allies scrambled to distance themselves. According to the sentencing judge, this was a man who used power to abuse women physically, emotionally, and psychologically in ways that extended far beyond the specific charges he faced. And no amount of legal spin could hide it. Not even his own lawyers' failed attempt to reframe everything as a consensual swinger lifestyle. An argument the jury saw straight through. Now he's locked inside the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. A place inmates openly call hell on earth, where steel beds, paper-thin mattresses, and constant violence are the norm. And the danger isn't theoretical. Just weeks ago, by his own team's account, he woke up with a shiv pressed to his throat. A blunt reminder that fame, money, and past connections mean nothing in a place run by fear and survival. Welcome to the big leagues, Sean.
We're in the unit that was one floor above mine. So in terms of like the setting, it's a fairly decent chance that the room I'm describing is similar to where Diddy.
And yet, even from behind bars, the blows keep landing. While the public fixated on the knife attack and his failed pardon plea, his legal team quietly filed appeals, arguing the judge acted like a 13th juror in imposing that 50-month sentence. But appeals are a Hail Mary, and when you're facing more than 100 civil lawsuits, each more damning than the last, even desperation starts to sound hollow. The accusations stretch back decades, with women and men describing coercion, substance-fueled manipulation, broken promises of careers that never came, and parties where the line between exclusive and exploitative didn't just blur, it vanished. Now, with the jet resurfacing like a ghost from his past, it feels less like the walls are closing in and more like they're collapsing. Because the scale of this downfall almost demands a recap. Sean Combs, the architect of a bad boy empire who turned swagger into a global brand. A man so powerful that presidents and A-listers lined up to be seen beside him, still believed he could charm his way out as the allegations mounted. Even after conviction, he wrote a letter to Trump, banking on an old friendship as if it still carried weight. Spoiler alert, it didn't. And now he sits in a cinderblock cell, watching the final pieces of his former life, his jet, his freedom, and his reputation, get stripped away one by one, like vultures circling a carcass.
At some point, it was decided that he needed medical care outside of the jail, so he was taken to a Brooklyn hospital.
And the wildest part is that this still may not be the bottom. If the new owners of that jet truly discovered what insiders are whispering about, this isn't just another lawsuit waiting to happen. It's the potential start of a whole new investigation, another wave of headlines, and yet another dark chapter in a saga already so twisted it feels unreal. Except it is real. And Diddy is no longer the one calling the shots. He's the man in Jailhouse Orange forced to watch his own story unravel without him. He didn't just lose a plane. He lost control. And when someone like Sean Combs loses control, the fall isn't quiet, it's spectacular. This is no longer about a jet, a failed pardon, or even a prison sentence. It's about a legend who built himself from nothing, and is now watching that legacy dismantled piece by piece, humiliation by humiliation. And if that plane is only the tip of the iceberg, buckle up, because the way this story is unfolding suggests we haven't even come close to the worst of it yet.
that matter pretty seriously and just pretty much said that, everyone, the judge, or excuse me, the attorneys, the witnesses' attorneys, the accusers' attorneys, they all have to adhere to these professional rules. They all have to adhere to this professional conduct. And if this continues and if more things are said that get onto the judges.
And this is where it gets truly interesting, because if we're being honest, Diddy selling that jet wasn't just a fire sale, it was a calculated one. The destination alone raises eyebrows. San Marino, not the Cayman Islands, not a familiar Delaware shell, but a tiny European microstate most people couldn't even point to on a map. So why would a man who once moved effortlessly among presidents and power brokers suddenly route his most prized asset through a place that obscure? Unless he wasn't simply selling a plane, he was trying to bury it. And if that's the case, the real question isn't why the jet was sold at all, but who it was sold to and what, exactly, they were expected to do with it once it changed hands.
You that the predicate acts may be found, but that's not all they need. There's an ultimate question. The first question on the jury verdict form is, do you find him guilty or not guilty of racketeering? Before you even get to the predicate acts, which you only get to if you find guilt, they could just be hung up on that question and say, this guy's not Tony Soprano. I am not convinced that I even want to find guilt.
Let's rewind, because this isn't the first time Diddy's private jet has played a starring role in a very convenient escape. Back in March 2024, as the FBI raided his Los Angeles and Miami mansions, he was already airborne, heading to Antigua. A coincidence only if you believe in fairy tales. That was a man who knew exactly how to move when the walls started closing in. And now, a year and a half later with his back against the wall again, he's running the same playbook. Except this time he isn't flying away, he's selling the plane. Quietly, strategically, and through San Marino. A microstate where privacy is currency and ownership can be shuffled until no one's quite sure who's responsible. Which is why the fact that the new owners are reportedly the ones calling the police doesn't look like bad luck. It looks like a miscalculation, the kind that only happens when someone doesn't play their part, or worse, someone flips. At the same time, Diddy was rolling out his nuclear option. A handwritten pardon plea to Trump, slipped out of prison like a desperate love note, banking on old New York power ties that no longer meant a thing. Trump, who doesn't do favors but transactions, didn't just reject it. He performed the rejection, dangling the letter in front of reporters and turning Diddy's last Hail Mary into a public humiliation. But that letter wasn't just desperation. It was a distraction, keeping eyes on the White House while, back in MDC Brooklyn, the pressure intensified. Because this was all happening after Diddy, by his own team's account, survived a knife at his throat inside a jail known for steel beds, paper-thin mattresses, and the brutal lesson that fame buys nothing. In a place where people like R. Kelly and Ghislaine Maxwell learned that reality fast, an attack like that isn't random, it's a message, and taken together with the jet sale, the letter, and the timing, it suggests something far darker was unfolding behind the scenes while everyone else was busy what?
Times I gotten a terrible concussion. And so I'm coming down with the concussion, the drugs, my brain really not working well. They assigned me a bunk, top bunk, center of the room, right under these fluorescent lights. And that little tiny strip was my only bit of like turf in the world. I had a little locker off to the side, but that bunk under the fluorescents in the middle of that room, sound coming up everywhere.
So let's connect the dots. Because while Diddy was busy playing chess with Trump, someone inside that jail was playing chess with him. That knife at his throat wasn't random violence. It was a warning. A reminder that at MDC Brooklyn you're only as safe as your last move. And Diddy's last move was unloading a jet that, by all accounts, carried far more than leather seats and a premium sound system. Whether it was retaliation, a signal from someone he crossed, or simply the cost of doing business for a man who spent decades collecting enemies, the message was clear. Debts follow you into prison. And while the knife attack grabbed headlines, a quieter and far more dangerous storm was already building. More than 100 lawsuits, accusations stretching back decades, with women and men describing coercion, manipulation, and being treated like disposable assets. Now, with that jet resurfacing like a ghost from his past, every photo, every recording, every physical trace allegedly left behind has the potential to ignite a new wave of legal disasters. Because the truth is, Diddy's criminal trial was only the opening act, The conviction just the appetizer. The real reckoning lies in the civil cases, the appeals, and the fresh investigations that could be triggered now that possible evidence is sitting in the hands of people who are actively talking to the police.
Didn't he? Well, if he didn't, he's got a lot to explain. Well, apparently what Diddy's done now, which is a very interesting thing, is he's on the offensive of sorts. That's right, Sean Diddy Combs has initiated a $100 million defamation lawsuit.
And this is where Diddy's final moves start to look either calculated or catastrophically foolish. Because if the jet is really as incriminating as insiders claim, selling it wasn't just a fire sale. It was a gamble, a bet that whoever bought it would stay quiet, and that the past could remain buried. But gambles come with losses. And for someone like Diddy, losing doesn't just cost money, it makes the entire house of cards start to shake. If the new owners uncovered what they're rumored to have found, this isn't just about another lawsuit, but the possibility of fresh criminal investigations, another cycle of headlines, and yet another layer added to a saga already so absurd it makes reality TV look tame. The real question no one seems willing to ask is what happens when a man who built an empire on secrets can no longer keep them. Because now Diddy isn't just fighting a conviction, he's fighting his legacy, and every new accuser, every surfaced recording, every unexpected call to police turns that legacy more toxic. That jet wasn't merely transportation. It symbolized power, excess, and a life lived above the rules, and now it's a liability boomeranging straight back at him. And while the focus stays on the jet, the knife, and the failed pardon plea, there's still the unanswered issue of money, mansions, businesses, deals with powerful people who don't simply disappear when things get ugly. Because men like Diddy don't go down quietly, they look for leverage, favors, and pressure points. So even as the world tallies his losses, it's worth remembering he may still have cards to play, and history suggests he's never been afraid to play them dirty, which leaves us staring at a man who's lost his freedom, his jet, and possibly his last shred of deniability, with no clear idea how far this collapse is really going to go.
I mean, what are you doing? You're saying I did this stuff, and there's no evidence whatsoever. You're out of your mind. You're crazy. There's no evidence of this. Now, his attorneys argue that the documentary maliciously portrays him as a monster and draws unfounded comparisons, they allege, to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the lawsuit...
A man staring down the barrel of a future where the only thing he controls is how loudly he falls. And if this jet is the tip of the iceberg, then the real wreckage is still beneath the surface. Icebergs are massive, and Diddy's past is even messier, full of hidden planes, properties, and secrets just waiting to be uncovered. Men like Sean Combs don't build empires on a single dirty secret. They stack them by the dozen. And if this jet is any indication, we've only just begun to dig. So the real question is, what else is out there? Because when the next shoe drops, you'll want to be watching. Until then, stay curious, stay skeptical, and remember, the higher they fly, the harder they fall. And Diddy? He was always flying too close to the sun. Goodbye for now, but not for long, because if there's one thing we know, this saga is far from over.